Warning. This show features dark subjects which may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Chaos Jar. I'm J. West Secord, the loud and obnoxious one. Hey. Over here is our host, and the big bag of facts, Bad Ben.
Hey.
And as always, we're joined by our editor, Christopher Sagriff.
Always? I guess I am always here in a way.
Just say hey.
Hello.
Good! Now you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at BA Chaos Jar. You can also follow us on Facebook at Chaos Jar Podcast, which is also the name of our YouTube channel. Hey, want to come? You know, you're not good with the podcast thing, you know, going to podcast websites and shit. Well, you know what? Look no further than YouTube, which is an easier medium for your friends that suck at podcasting or listening to podcasts. Well, you know what I mean.
Podcasts?
Shut up!
I suck at listening to podcasts. What can I do?
I'm glad you asked. You can go to YouTube and go to the channel Chaos Jar Podcast.
It's so easy.
And you can also follow me at I'm glad you asked _ Please send me questions, and that's me, will answer them.
That's me.
That's me.
The fact that he points at himself.
Yeah.
It's great for audio
one
shows.
right here.
And
Just so you don't get
if you want to become a patron and, you know, give us money, well, we're shamelessly asking you to give us money now. So go to patreon.com/chaosjar and give us some money. Please.
Please.
We want money.
I'd like to be paid someday for my editing work.
Shut up. Getting tokens, Cage.
Not again.
You told me I didn't have to go in the cage.
I lied.
I know.
If you pitch in some money, we'll make you an executive producer and give you a shout out on the show. Plus, you'll have early access to our bonus episodes, The Overflow. And if you want, you can go to our Patreon page and watch the episodes that are already out there for free, because they're out now. Yay!
Hooray!
Hooray! All right, that's everything and more in the show notes. Just look in the show notes now. Ben, what's going into the jar today?
Well, we're going to talk about how that was a disaster, but...
That was the best intro we've ever had.
I'm not going to lie, it sucked, but you got out the information, so... I give it like a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. We're still passing.
Yeah.
For now. We'll see how the show goes.
So,
thanks for the YouTube advertisement.
Oh my god, at 5 minutes he said it like Patreon, but it's patron. Ugh. Down, bud, unsubscribe.
Yeah, unsubscribe, unfollow. Alright.
Twitter, whatever you do there.
Twitter. So anyway.
The fuck are we talking about today, Ben?
We're talking about 3335 West Moncrief Place.
Is that next to 13 Dead End Drive?
It might be.
Awesome.
So, this is going to take us to Denver, Colorado.
Oh.
Yeah. It's going to take us, Mile High City. And it's going to be, most of this is going to take place in the 1940s.
Oh.
So.
The swinging 40s.
Yeah. Swinging 40s. So, we're going to meet up with the owner of 3335 West Moncrief Place.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
3335 West Moncrief Place.
Yeah, okay.
How many threes?
There's 3 threes.
3 threes and 3335?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, okay.
So, we're going to meet the owner, Philip Peters, who's owned it for the last 50 years at this point.
Is that a comedian?
Philip Peters? I don't think so.
Russell Peters?
Tomato, potato.
All right. So, Philip is married to his loving wife, Helen, and he's a father, but it's really hard to find any source material on how many kids they actually had. But I do know that they at least had one who lived in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Thrilling.
Yeah. So,
we've established one child.
Yeah.
He has had sex.
So Philip worked for the Denver Rio Grande Western Railroad for the majority of his life. He was also an avid musician and a member of the Denver Guitar Club with his wife Helen. Both used to teach lessons in guitar playing and mandolin playing. So they're musicians, and they actually at points were like the sole people in this club at points, like in the early days. At this point in his life, though, he is 73, and it's September of 1941. Helen has had a fall and broke her hip, and she's gone to the hospital for a couple weeks. Because Philip is 73, retired, and this isn't really the era where men did the cooking. His local neighbors were generously taking care of him by making meals and inviting him to have dinner with them so he wouldn't have to be alone. He would come and see them after he visited Helen, and then they would send him off with leftovers for him to have lunch the next day. Really sweet little community that they have happening here.
Very neighborly.
Yeah, what happened to that one son? Did he eat him? And that's why they give him food now?
Well, he's in Grand Junction, so...
Yeah, he's also like in his 40s or 50s
at this point. Yeah, by this point. So, on October 17th, 1941, Philip didn't show up for dinner at his neighbor's place, so they decided to head over to the house and check on him. There was no answer at the door, so that neighbor went and got more neighbors instead of calling the police. And they all began to search around the property to see if they could get inside the house, which is a completely normal way of doing things, I'm guessing, in the 1940s. They managed to find a screen on one of the windows that was slightly loose from the frame, but it still took a lot of prying to get this.
We are getting in this goddamn house.
And we're going to save this man.
I just love this, is that they're just checking on him. They're like, oh, maybe he's still asleep or something. Because, that won't freak him out.
He's a 70-year-old man. He might just be, napping in his fucking chair. And they're like, let's break into his fucking place.
Yeah, I like the idea of he's sleeping. And they're like, oh, okay, we got to be very quiet.
And from what I understand, too, is his wife's in the hospital, and he's only been late for, maybe an hour. So what if he's just spending more time at the hospital with his wife? So here's a bunch of people breaking into his house.
They get there, and there's just, no one there. It's like, all right, well, let's take some shit, and let's get out of here.
So after all that prying and banging and getting the screen off, they then pry open a window and shove a young girl through. And the plan is that she is going to go and lock the door. However, the moment the girl gets inside, she suddenly begins to shriek. So they then...
Susie, go and lock the door! Yeah. This is why we had you!
Yeah. So the neighbors end up rushing inside, and they found poor Philip bludgeoned to death with a cast iron oven shaker. He'd been struck 37 times. And there was so much blood that the scene was described, and I quote, couldn't have been done justice in a horror novel. End quote. So there's just blood everywhere from this guy, unfortunately.
And the one to find it was the small child.
Yeah, I just love that they just, broke into this guy's house. Great that you guys found the body. This also could have been done by the police.
Yeah.
I question what's an iron shaker?
So, do you know if you have a fireplace, they have the poker.
Yeah.
And then there's a shovel, right?
Oh.
And then there's another one that's kind of got a fan tip or something, and that's what a shaker is. It's to shake the embers and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, I've always seen those things where there's 5 tools and it looks like one of them is actually useful.
Yeah.
And people only know the poker because it's used as a weapon in movies and TV shows.
And this time the shaker was used as a weapon.
Jesus.
So the police arrived on the scene and began an investigation. They found no signs of forced entry other than the screen that got pulled off. And they started... And so then they also asked the neighbors, who all noted that it took a great deal of force for them to get this loose screen off. That it basically... I'm guessing what happened was they got there and the screen was just like the only screen that was slightly out of place, and they're like, we can get in there. Fucking right.
I just love the determination on these neighbors to get in the damn house. It was so locked down, you guys. You have no idea how hard it was to break into this guy's house.
It took an entire neighborhood to do it, and a small child.
Small little girl.
So
she was the hero of the story.
So they could not find a trace of the killer anywhere in the house. Like, there was not really any, like, footprints. They did find fingerprints, but this is before forensics is really majorly huge, so they couldn't really, like, do anything with it. But it looks as though the killer just kind of vanished into thin air. Like, all doors and windows were locked. Obviously, the screens were in place.
Very secure.
Like, I don't mean to make fun of this, but it's amazing how fucking, like...
I mean, kudos to the people who built the house, at least. Like, Jesus.
Kudos to him. He's owned this house for 50 years. He maintained that shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
those old houses were meant to
withstand nuclear bombs? Like,
yeah.
Just nuclear bomb or a neighborhood.
Sorry, this is before the invention of nuclear bombs, so it's just fucking...
He knew. He knew.
He saw it coming. So, the crime was really odd for many reasons. One, because the neighbors kept breaking in. But yeah.
They kept doing this?
No. It'd be amazing if they did. So, but
we should check on the scene again.
So,
Susie, go get the door.
So the Peters were very well-liked people, and they didn't really seem to have any enemies. The killer appeared to murder Philip, then just disappeared again because nothing was stolen. The killer had also taken the time to wash the weapon after the murder, so he had ample time to, like, get out of there. Like, whoever did this could have just taken off or whatever, but no, they took the time to wash the weapon. Like, that's what's crazy about this whole thing.
They weren't expecting neighborhood to break into a guy's house.
So, there were fingerprints found, but they didn't match anyone on the scene, nor did they match Mrs. Peters. So it's not like she got out of the hospital with her broken hip and came and murdered her husband and left.
That would be determination.
Wouldn't
right there.
that be amazing? So
that would be more supernatural than the person appearing and disappearing.
Yeah. So, the police did send somebody to go and, like, keep an eye on Helen because she's obviously in danger because this person broke into the house and then vanished. So what if they just appeared in the hospital?
They didn't break in.
Yeah, they appeared inside the house.
They didn't break in. What were they, next door neighbors?
So, even though the police were stumped, after a few weeks, Helen had recovered and she returned to her home. However, one night she was startled by something and she fell and refractured her hip.
Oh,
But she didn't want to have another lengthy stay at the hospital, so she had a nurse be hired to come and care for her. The nurse would talk about how she would often find things moved around the house, there was odd rattlings and such, and so then one dreadful night, she heard some noise from downstairs, and the nurse spotted a specter that chattered its teeth at her, then vanished.
Was it a beaver?
The specter of a beaver?
Yeah. So the nurse immediately resigned. So to keep an eye on her, one of the local neighbors moved in with her.
Easier to break in that way.
She's described as a close friend and then, like, a neighbor. Like,
yeah.
So both Helen and her friend began to notice strange noises, moving objects, lights turning on and off in odd places. And quickly, the friend grew really, really disturbed and just moved out. So this neighbor was like, fuck this, I'm out. Like,
Jesus, like, I'm starting to feel bad for this old lady.
Yeah.
Like, she broke her hip, husband gets murdered, lives with neighbors that break into the house, breaks her hip again, loses the nurse, loses the friend. Like, Jesus Christ, lady.
No one
And
wants...
they're all freaked out by this ghost that probably killed her husbands, and they're just leaving her with it. Like,
Yeah, actually, that's terrifying. Either that, or it's just an excuse because they don't like her.
So Helen then hired a housekeeper to keep her company. The occurrences continued, and the housekeeper did state later that it sounded like there was scratching from inside the walls. So, like, at first she just wrote it off as rats, but then things would move around the house, or lights would come on in a room that they weren't in at some point, and then she would hear this scratching, and they all kind of click together.
My beaver theories. Getting evidence.
So, one night in 1942, the housekeeper calls the police and states, quote, "Just a few moments ago, I heard some sort of tapping. I had heard it before, but always thought that it was woodpeckers. But this time, I walked into the kitchen and saw the door to the stairway that leads upstairs slowly open. A foot came out, and then I saw a thin white hand on the door." She described a ragged-looking specter that whisked off when she screamed. The police immediately responded, but again couldn't find any trace of an intruder anywhere. They searched like the house top to bottom all over again. Couldn't find anything. So again, the intruder had vanished. The housekeeper refused to return to the house, and Mrs. Peters went to stay with one of her sons in Grand Junction. So the son finally, after all this, is like, okay, well, why don't you just come live here because the ghost killed dad, and like,
oh fuck, ghost killed dad. Better take care of mom.
So this left the property at 3335 West Moncrief Place vacant. Yet neighbors still saw lights in the house go on and off throughout the day and nights. Mabel Burke and all 5 of her children noted lights and odd sounds that would come from the house, and they would often see a fleeting face peeking from the windows occasionally. It freaked Mabel out so bad the one night that she armed herself with a baseball bat and went and knocked on the door of the vacant house, but again didn't receive any answer. I love that she grabbed the baseball bat and she's like, "I'm gonna fuck this ghost up." And then she went and knocked on the door like the ghost is gonna answer the fucking door.
The first time the neighbors don't break in.
Yeah.
So
they only break in when it's in a matter of helping someone.
Yeah.
But when you're going to beat someone up, you have to be polite.
Yeah. So they would call the cops a lot, and the police continued to make the rounds of the area and keep an eye on the house. And they would see just like odd occurrences, but they could never find the source. So like they would catch something or they'd hear something, they'd show up at the house, enter, find nothing, and then be like, well, must have been nothing. So this will prove to be the case until July 30th, 1942, when police detectives Roy Bloxham and Bill Jackson were keeping surveillance of the house.
Those almost sound made up.
I know.
I was thinking like Bloxham and Jackson.
like a Starsky and Hutch style talk show.
Bloxy and Jackson.
Which one's the good cop? Which one's the bad cop?
Oh, Jackson's the bad cop. Jackson.
He slides. He's the one who slides on the hood of the car.
Yeah.
The 1940s mobile. So they were keeping surveillance of the house at the time because the neighbors would call in so often that they just decided to stake out the house. Like, so this is how often this strange stuff is happening, that they just decided to put 2 detectives there and just be like, just watch the house. Like, and then all I can think to myself is, what if these are like the 2 fuck up detectives and they're just like, we need to give them something to do. Like,
yeah, they're probably like the young, like the new hires. And like, all right, let's give them the 3335 shithouse.
Yeah. So the mailman comes by and drops off some letters, and that's when Bill spots what he described as a hobgoblin face peeking out of the window.
A hobgoblin face.
Wait, I like the specification of a hobgoblin as opposed to a regular goblin.
Oh, it's like a level 5 berserker goblin, probably holding like a level 10 sword, fire equipped.
I think he has a +1 shield.
Yeah.
Be careful, they usually have shaman around.
It's nasty.
So, the detectives snap into action and enter the house. Everything's super quiet, and they begin to search the first floor, and that's when they hear a door upstairs move and what sounds like a lock. They then rush upstairs and make their way to a closet where they find 2 legs dangling out of a trap door in the ceiling. blocks him, grabs hold of the legs, and pulls out a thin, gaunt man.
Okay.
So, James Childer, who later became the police chief, but at the time was just working in the station, called the man the strangest looking human I have ever seen.
Oh, wow.
I would expect. So, they said it was a hobgoblin face. Like, he had chattering teeth. Like,
Jesus.
His ears were pointed. His skin was green.
He had little Susie in his mouth. Whatever happened to little Susie? Uh-oh, she's gone.
So, he was about 6 feet tall, thin, dirty hair hanging past his ears, which were pointed. Just kidding. Skin dirty and unwashed, as gray as an overcast sky. Shoes and clothes all rotted and tattered. The officers had noticed the trapdoor on their initial searches, but it seemed just too small for a normal human to fit in. And they'd also tried to open it, but it seemed to be jammed. So, what I love about this is they saw this trapdoor, and they were like, that just looks so small. And I've seen the pictures of this trapdoor, and it is very tiny. And then when they tried to push it, it was jammed. So they were just like, well, there's obviously not anybody up there. And they went away.
The guy's just sitting on the door.
Yeah. And
Brilliant detective work.
So they had tried to open it, appeared to be jammed. Inside of this, though, they found a room that was only 27 inches high and 57 inches wide. So barely the size of a coffin. And he made it even worse for himself because there was barely enough room inside for a man, but he used an ironing board as a bed. He also wasn't alone in this little room. Oh. He was kept company by the hundreds of spiders that were nested in the attic with him.
I thought you were going to say Little Susie for a second.
He also wasn't alone. The shrieks was because she was dragging little Susie up there. They also discovered a stockpile of canned goods that he had cut into the house's electrical system to provide himself an outlet for a makeshift radio. The man later stated that it was to stay in touch with the world. So who is this strange-looking man?
I feel like there are easier ways to do that.
Yes. So who is this strange little man? Originally, he stated his name was Matthew Cornish.
Of course.
But that was ruled out very quickly, and his true identity was discovered to be 59-year-old Theodore Edward Coneys. Coneys was born in Petersburg, Illinois, on November 10th, 1882, to Thomas H., who was born in November 18th, 1844, and died July 1st, 1888. So he would have only been like 6 when his dad died. And Isabella Elam, who was born in March 1st, 1851, died April 14th, 1911. After his father died, his mother had a hard time keeping employment as a housekeeper, and they continued to move around. So they moved from Illinois to like somewhere in Montana, and then into Utah, and then into Colorado. That's how he ended up in Denver. But now he's 59 years old. So he was also a very sick child and was not expected to make it past the age of 18. So he definitely outlived that age gap.
Yeah.
He had
spiders.
I was going to say, he lived on spiders.
Yeah.
That's the secret to eternal life, spiders.
So he had made it into adulthood, obviously, and worked as a bookkeeper for Denver Brass Works. Then did some sales and advertising before settling into his lifelong career of being a homeless drifter.
That's what I aspire to.
Isn't that the dream for everybody?
That's the good life. Homeless drifter, going from town to town, breaking into people's houses.
So he despised the way that he was treated due to his poor health, and always wished for a place where people would leave him alone, let him be free of the judgment of other people. I just picture him. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Meet the Robinsons, but the kid that gets picked on or whatever, and he's like, they all hated me.
Yeah!
And meanwhile, they're like, hey, you want to come to our house and hang out? And he's like, he just fucking walks by. They all hated me. So
where he gets so tired he can't play the baseball game? Yeah.
So Theodore knew Peters, like knew Philip Peters. He killed him knowing him. In 1899, long before his vagrant days, he had attended the Denver Guitar Club and had been taught by both Philip and Helen how to play the mandolin. He had also been at their house many times. In fact, Philip Peters helped him get the job at Denver Brass Works as a bookkeeper. Though this was decades earlier. Like, they hadn't seen each other in years. So, one night while he was down on his luck being a vagrant drifter, he didn't want to sleep in the cold again, so he came across 3335 West Moncrief Place. He knocked on the door, but there was no answer, but he found the door unlocked and slipped inside. When the owners returned home, instead of, being like, hey, you remember me? He just slipped into the attic and hid there.
Natural reaction, yeah.
So, quote, and this is exactly how he puts it, everything would have been all right, and Phil Peters would have been alive today if he hadn't caught me robbing the icebox. It was him or me. I thought he had gone out, but he was taking a nap. I hit him with the stove shaker, and he tried to run for help. I don't know if he recognized me. It was nearly 30 years since he last seen me. When it was over, I ran to the attic after I washed and dried the shaker. I was sitting on the trap door when you were pounding on it from below that night you found him. I was in the neighborhood in September 1941, found the house unlocked, no one home. I went inside, stole some food. I was in bad shape. My lungs were giving me a lot of trouble. I was at the end of my rope. A fall was coming, and I couldn't face another winter on the road. I had to have a place to stay. I didn't know Mrs. Peters was in the hospital. I found the hole in the closet, climbed through, and slept and slept. Whenever I heard him downstairs, I kept real still. Then I got bolder. I used to shadow him from room to room. It was sort of a game. It gave me a thrill. It was the first time in my life I'd ever had anyone at my mercy, but I didn't want to hurt him. It was miserable hot in the summer, and my feet froze in the dead of winter in that attic. But it was all part of the price I was willing to pay. I can't tell you why I stuck it out. I guess it was mostly because it was a world all of my own. I used to go down and look at the windows and watch the postman come by. Nobody has written to me in 25 years. Whenever I saw people on the street, I hated them. I would go back to my attic. So,
you're not going to get many letters in a fucking attic, dude.
Yeah, no one knows you're there. This isn't Hogwarts.
3335 attic.
I also love that he hates people and wanted to be left alone, but then he's like, but nobody ever writes me letters.
Yeah.
So,
Jesus, there was so much to pick apart there. One, why didn't the neighbors check to see if the door was unlocked?
Yeah.
Well, you
Here's
gotta bring in.
The neighbors had such a hard time getting in there, yet he got in because the door was unlocked. Like, did the neighbors just keep walking in, and then he was finally like, I'm gonna let them, they're fucking coming in here all the goddamn time. Like,
yeah, I don't blame
Or
him.
did Conies lock the door after he killed them and was like, oh, I really should lock this place up because, any psychopath could just come in here.
Any lunatic could just walk in, climb into the attic, kill a guy, eat some spiders. Like, we gotta protect these people. Come on.
So, the other thing that I wanted to point out is he said it was Peters or I.
Yeah, Peter or I.
And Peters was sitting there taking a nap. He caught me in his nap.
No.
Stealing from the ice box.
So I actually have more details because that, even though his recollection of the events is strange, there's more to it, and it's kind of crazy. But the one thing I do want to mention is I got bolder and used to shadow him from room to room.
That might be my favorite part.
That's fucking creepy.
Like, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You're already doing pretty well.
I'm pretty sure you can just leave. Like,
yeah.
You can get some thrill, I don't know, like it's the 40s, go to the fucking sock op, join the war, something. Yeah. You want your thrill, fucking go fight Hitler.
Yeah. At 59 years old.
Do it! Come on!
They'll never expect him. This guy who looks like a hobgoblin.
Exactly.
Clearly, he's the best assassin they have.
You think Hitler's going to want anything to do with that? He's going to see him and go, no.
You know what? Get him. Send him to Hitler's house, and he'll see if the door's unlocked and slip into the attic.
Well, the doors will be locked, but they'll break in because, it's the time.
Bring the neighbors with you.
Yeah. That's what
They're
you do.
real good at getting in the house.
He starts shadowing Hitler.
That's what you do. You get the hobgoblin.
Then the one night when he catches him reading the ice.
You get the hobgoblin, you get the neighbors, you get little Susie, you get them all together, you get fucking Tom Cruise going, you get them all going to fucking Hitler. Guaranteed, World War II's done. Fucking praise Susie.
Why did Tom Cruise get dragged?
Look.
Tom Cruise is in everything.
If you need something done, you call Tom Cruise.
It's like Samuel L. Jackson, right?
Well, Sam Jackson's not born yet, Ben. Come on.
Okay.
Yeah, seriously.
You got to think about these things.
I forgot that Tom Cruise was still living in the closet back then.
Okay.
All right, so that fateful night in October when Coney here killed Philip. So Coney had thought that Philip was out of the house and came out of his hiding spot to raid the icebox. Philip had been taking a nap, but then woke up because he heard noises in the kitchen because this guy wasn't fucking quiet because he thought he was not alone in the house, and went to investigate the noise. He found Coney there, ran to go get his pistol, but Coney struck first. Philip fought back using several cane strikes to make it to the drawer. So he was like beating him with his cane, like, fuck off!
I love that.
Got there, got the pistol, but then Coney hit him, managed to overpower him, get the pistol, and then instead of shooting him with a fucking loaded pistol whipped the shit out of him. Like, just beat him with it. Then when the gun was...
I don't have a license for this.
Yeah. So then...
I'm not properly trained.
So then when he decided to, like, put the pistol aside, he then grabbed the shaker and finished him off. So he didn't just, like, I love the fact that he got the gun and he could have just finished him off there. And instead he was like, fuck you with the gun. Like, oh. So then Coney's went and washed his hands, cleaned the shaker, snagged some food, and disappeared into his lair. And then that's when the police showed up, discovered the trapdoor, but he sat on it to give the illusion of it being jammed. So, the newspapers picked up this story and dubbed him the Denver Spiderman, due to a quote by Detective Fred Zarno that, quote, a man would have to be a spider to stand it up there for long.
Yeah, that was... Wow.
It's a bit of a stretch.
I just love that that's what set it off, not the fact that there was hundreds of spiders around him. Like, so Coney's...
Or his creepy way of shadowing people.
Yeah.
So Coney's was sentenced to life in prison for the murder. He spent most of his sentence at Cannon City Penitentiary, where he was the librarian and would often pluck strings on his mandolin. He actually loved it in prison because it was a world of his own where he didn't get fucking bothered and he just got to take his time going through the library and moving books and whatever. People just left him alone.
Probably he had more space to fucking sleep.
Yeah.
He probably had a blanket.
It was legit a fucking upgrade for him.
So
probably missed the spiders though.
Yeah. Coney's died on May 16th, 1967 at Colorado State Penitentiary in the hospital ward. The case was made into 2 episodes of different shows, one CSI episode titled Stalker, and the other a Simpson episode called The Ziff Who Came to Dinner. So
what episode's that? You're the Simpsons expert, right?
It's the one where they find Artie Ziff living in their attic, and then
that's like a super later season.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because it was kind of reminding me of the one where there's like an alternate version of Bart. I think his name was Hugo.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of that because he was also living in the attic and was kind of ugly looking, but there's definitely enough difference that it wasn't it. But
I think that's based off a completely different story too, because they were feeding him fish heads too, right?
Yeah.
Because one was supposed to be the evil twin.
Yeah. But it was Bart was the spoiler alert. Bart was the evil twin.
Yeah. So now let's talk about something that's just as crazy as the tale, and that's the fact that this is not an isolated incident, nor is it rare. This happens a lot.
Ugh.
So in 2009, actor Joe Cummings noticed that food was vanishing in his Manhattan apartment. He kept accusing his girlfriend, and she kept insisting that it wasn't her. So to prove it was her, he set up a camera in his kitchen and to film when she goes to get a snack. But he didn't find a snack-happy girlfriend. What he found was that in the middle of the night, there was a tiny cupboard that opens, and a woman emerges. She bends down to a table below, uses a stool to steady herself, makes it to the floor, then urinates in his sink before making her way to the food, drinking juice out of the carton from his fridge.
Oh, come on.
And then Joe comes out to investigate the noises on this footage, and the woman ducks behind a couch. Joe doesn't notice her, which I find is the oddest thing because he does this in the dark. It's not like he even turns on a light. Like, if he turned on the light, he would have spotted her. So, he then decides that he couldn't see anything and heads back to bed.
That was one of those, it sounds like one of those sitcom moments where they show the footage, someone does exactly what she's doing, and then he's like, and he drinks from the juice that she drank from.
I'm just saying, like, all this stuff, whatever, use a fucking glass, lady, come on.
So later when...
I'm fine with you peeing in the sink.
You gotta pee somewhere. Everyone's gotta pee. Just use a damn glass.
So later when Joe sees the footage, he calls the police. They find the woman. She apparently had come to rob him, but he wasn't home, so she decided that this was a better arrangement instead. She'd been living in this manor for over 2 weeks, so she just crammed herself in that little cupboard for 2 fucking weeks.
Wow, this place is great! I think I'll just stay here instead.
So, in 2008, the year before this, an unnamed 57-year-old Japanese man realized that he had been sharing his home with a secret tenant. Prior to discovery, he had noticed that someone was stealing food from his fridge. So he suspected it was a burglar, which that's where I jumped to immediately, and installed security cameras and sent the live footage to his phone. So one fateful day, he receives a video of a strange woman opening the fridge. He calls the police, who went to his house, and the police were surprised when they found the doors and windows locked and intact and no signs of a break-in. But they enter the house, thinking the burglar is still inside. They find no traces of the burglar until they check a shelf above the closet, and inside they find 58-year-old Tatsuko Horikawa. Investigations...
Did need help with that.
Oh, yeah. Investigations reveal that she had been secretly living in other houses in the area before settling in this man's house, and she had been there a year before she was caught.
Jesus.
In 2012, a woman named Tracy and her 5 children were occupying her home in South Carolina when she discovered that there was another person that was living in her house, an ex she had broken up with 12 years ago. She had heard strange noises in her attic during the day before discovering that the man was living there, but they had checked the attic before and found nothing. The strange noises kept happening. Plasters and nails from the ceiling would fall onto her bed and floor. She called a nephew to check the attic the next day. He found nothing until he went deeper into the attic and found the ex sleeping. So he was like buried somewhere in this attic. He then hurried out of the house smiling, and she learned later that he could see her bedroom through an air vent. She couldn't figure out how he got into the house or how long he had been there. However, he had helped her put new doors on her home a year earlier and had completed a 90-day jail sentence for stealing her car. So they broke up 12 years ago, and he's still fucking around. Like,
Jesus, dude.
He had left his stuff in the attic, including his photos, toys, cassettes, and several cups of feces and urine. So another woman named Amber Dawn heard footsteps in her attic one night when she moved into a new apartment in Enumclaw, Washington. In 1997.
Enumclaw?
Yeah.
She
checked the trap door that led to the attic, and while it looked really suspicious, as if somebody had pulled it inside, she never thought somebody would actually be there. She told the landlady about the footsteps, but she dismissed it as a squirrel. I love that. It sounds like footsteps up there. Probably just squirrel.
Yeah.
Dawn noticed some strange events in her home over the next few months. Things were mysteriously missing. Her items were being moved. And at one point, her 9-week-old puppy ended up inside her bathroom sink during a flood. Even though it wouldn't have been able to climb in by itself, she thought her brother did this since he had a key to the apartment. But then she found out after 6 months, only 6 months after moving in. One night, she was soaking in the bathtub when she looked up at the trap door that led to her attic, and it was open. So she's having a bath, and he has the little thing open. Like, she hurried and grabbed a hammer and her dog before leaving the house. I love that she grabs a hammer and the dog. Like, and and then leaves the house. Like,
don't accidentally use the dog as a hammer. Like throw attackers coming at you. You want to throw the hammer, you throw the dog.
I'm sorry, Fifi, but distract him.
Yeah, so outside,
gotta keep my hammer.
So outside, she called her sister-in-law, who came and picked her up, and then police later searched her apartment, found no one, but they did find food, a book, and a sleeping bag inside of that attic. This one's my personal favorite. In 2013, some Ohio State University students discovered that they were not alone in their off-campus accommodations. They found that somebody was living in their basement. Before they had made this discovery, the students had often found their cupboards and microwave open and had heard noises from the basement. They never thought much of the events and often joked that the strange happenings were the handiwork of a ghost. Mm-hmm. They only found out that the ghost was actually a secret roommate when maintenance workers forcefully opened the basement, and the stranger was another student who would only identify himself as Jeremy, and they allowed him to pick up his things before evicting him from the home. No one knew how Jeremy got into the house, how long he had been living there. They guessed it was before they moved in, since the landlord never changed the locks to the house. And interestingly, one of the roommates had met Jeremy earlier, but thought he was a visitor. So he, this guy's just been living in the basement this whole fucking time.
I mean, at that point, none of them recognize him. He probably could have just moved upstairs and no one would have thought about it. He's just like, who the hell is that? Oh, that's just Jeremy, his new roommate.
Yeah. So, when Maddie, a junior at the University of North Carolina in Greensboro, realized that there was pieces of her wardrobe mysteriously vanishing, she and her roommates blamed a ghost, because the ghost is going to want your clothes.
Of course.
It's always a ghost.
She found handprints on the bathroom wall, and on February 2nd, 2019, she discovered a man living in her closet wearing her clothes. I have this image that she got home from, the mall or something, and she's like, because my clothes are always going to be in, and she opens it up, and he's in there, modeling, and he's like, whoa.
It just feels so nice on my skin.
This is awkward. We're going to have to change. So, quote, I hear rattling in my closet. It sounded like a raccoon in my closet, which, honestly, if you hear rattling in your closet and you think it's a raccoon, I'm not about to open that fucking closet.
Yeah, call it pest control or something.
Yeah. So, I'm like, who's there? And somebody answers me, and he's like, oh, hi, my name is Drew. This is the most awkward thing.
This is awkward. I'm Drew.
Yeah. I open the door, and he's in there wearing all of my clothes, my socks, my shoes, and he has a book bag full of my clothes. Police identified the man as 30-year-old Andrew Swafford. Maddie talked to Swafford as she waited for her boyfriend and authorities to arrive. I love this. She's sitting there chatting with him. I'm going to have to call the cops now. And he's like, yeah.
I understand.
But you look fabulous. What are your tips?
These clothes are so great. So he continued to try on her clothes and commented about how she was really pretty. I love it.
I mean, why not?
I just love that he's like, you know what? We're already here. Why don't we just do this?
I'm going to prison. Might as well have some fun.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Makeover! Makeover!
Please insert that. So Swafford was arrested and put under a $26,000 bond. He faces 14 felony charges, including larceny and identity theft. I'm going to say this. I don't really think identity theft fits for that.
Yes, he definitely matched the identity and personality of that college woman.
Yeah. So there's also this tale, which is a very interesting tale, and it's really highlighted in an article. So I'm going to just read it out because this is a little bit of fun. Davis Wallman heard something strange in his attic and he decided to investigate. He had been house sitting for the summer, and for the most part, everything had gone smoothly. That changed when he returned home. So not even the house that he's house sitting. He returned home after a weekend at his family's cabin. Quote, I got back Sunday night. A buddy was with me, and I remember we were watching Game of Thrones. He left that night, and something seemed off or amiss. I love that the off or amiss.
It was season 6.
Yeah. But the next night, Wallman came home from work around 11 p.m. and immediately noticed something unusual. Quote, "It was weird. The upstairs light in my parents' room was on. And I thought, this is odd, but my parents were in and out of the house all the time."
It was probably
their
a raccoon.
fucking house. Yeah, it's a raccoon.
Yeah.
Don't go in there. Or it's Andrew trying on your mom's dresses. He didn't think much of it. His parents probably just stopped in and left the light on by accident. Quote, "They leave the blinds closed in the summer. If they stopped in even during the day, it would have totally made sense for them to leave a light on. And that was the only thing that was weird. Nothing else was out of place. Nothing would have tipped me off that somebody was in the house. He went to sleep, and as far as he was concerned, it was a normal night. Early on Tuesday morning, he awoke to strange noises. So I hear somebody from up above me. My first thought is that was my mom. She must have come home early, and I was doing something in the attic. My mom keeps a very clean attic, let me tell you." I love that. That's the quote. Let me tell you.
Let me tell you about my mom's attic. There's some weird sexual joke in there somewhere.
Yeah. So still, she didn't understand. He didn't understand why his mother would be there early in the morning, especially during the summer, because she was frequently out of town. Well, it's her fucking house. If she came back,
Yeah.
So he decides to investigate, and he tried to open the office door that leads to the attic, and he discovered it was locked. When I tried to open the door, it was locked from the inside, and that's when I knew that something was really weird. My mom would never lock the door to the office, unless she's doing something sexual in her fucking attic. So he began knocking on the door, and this might seem like an unusual reaction, but he really did believe there was an intruder. I knocked on the door and said, "Mom!" The first time, I didn't get an answer. I grabbed my phone, about to dial 911, and that's when I'm like, I've got to try one more time. I didn't want to call the cops in case it was my mom. And then a voice from inside, a woman's voice from inside says, "Jimmy? Is that you, Jimmy?" And I thought, who the hell is Jimmy? The woman insisted that Jimmy told her that she could stay at the house, remarking that she had been there for 3 days. Realizing that the woman might be mentally unstable, he calls the police. Because Jimmy.
Jimmy, is that you?
I said, "Excuse me one moment," and then dialed 911. It was so awkward.
God, it was so awkward. I had to call 911.
So he tried to keep the stranger from fleeing his home, even though he's on the other side of a locked door, and she's screaming about Jimmy. And he didn't want to physically restrain her. And a journalist by trade, he had plenty of stories involving home invasions, so he wanted to de-escalate the situation. "I didn't want to grab her," he said. She kind of kept advancing towards me, and I was taking a very defensive position. "No, stay where you are. Stay where you are." And she would say something like, "Can I use the bathroom? Can I use the shower?" And I'd say, "No, you can't use those things. You need to stay here until we can sort this out with the police." And she kind of walked down the stairs. Honestly, I would have just told her, "Yeah, go ahead and have a shower."
Yeah.
That's going to keep her there while the police are coming.
Yeah.
So once outside, the woman asked if she could sit on the porch, and Wallman gave his permission and kept talking to the police dispatcher. Quote, "I was kind of, and that's when I kind of let my guard down a little bit. Her back was to me. She sits down on the porch. I looked the other way, then in a flash, she's just gone. She must have bolted because I was pretty quick and I ran around the entire house. I didn't even catch a hint of where she might have gone. She disappeared into thin air."
That was
back in
the
the
ghost.
fucking attic.
Yeah. She just went back in the house.
Yeah.
So, searching the house later, Wallman found a busted window screen, a ladder from the attic was in the yard, and he now believes that a second person, Jimmy, was staying in his house. He noted that he appreciates the Seattle police, and he was disappointed with the response time. He claims that the officers didn't respond for a full 18 minutes. That's actually pretty fucking good. And it sounds like you live in a really rural area, so, that's pretty good. Out here, it still takes 27 minutes for them to respond from anywhere. So that's nuts. 18 minutes. So for their part, the police say that they dispatched an officer within 4 minutes of the report. So that's even better because it took 4 minutes for them to get the report and then they were there. So it only took them 14 minutes to respond. Quote, "I know when any emergency department, any police or emergency department response agency worth their salt is going to try and get it within a 90-second window. What? He thinks that he's going to be able to, like... Are they waiting down the street?
Well, he's a reporter. He knows.
Yeah. I would think in a big city like Seattle, I want to believe that they're going to want to get there in under 5 minutes, especially when I'm on the phone with dispatch saying, hey, I'm literally face-to-face with an intruder in my home right now. Help me out here. Nevertheless, the baffled homeowner doesn't believe that the suspect was nefarious. While she moved a few of his personal items around, the attic was mostly undisturbed. Although over the course of the last year, Wallman's mother has noticed a few items missing. According to Wallman, the woman was wearing gym warm-up pants, a black track jacket with a white hood. She had a backpack and shoulder-length brunette hair, and identified as Sarah. He even got her name. Like...
But the cops were too slow.
Yeah, they weren't there in 90 seconds. So he's confused by how the woman got into his house, as the entrance window wasn't easily accessible, and while he kept the fire escape ladder in the attic, she wouldn't have been able to access the ladder without breaking into the property first. So she would have had to break in, but that's how she's getting in and out of the house. She has the fucking ladder.
Yeah.
So he also said that his neighbors would have likely noticed the intrusion. So shortly after the events, the locksmith replaced the locks. Wallman made a report, and they don't believe that the police ever found the woman. He spread his story across the internet. It did feel really creepy. And honestly, I'm a non-confrontational person, so I was like, why are you doing this? So, it's not even just houses, though.
Oh, no.
There was a man living in the rafters above the Yard House, a restaurant in the 16th Street Mall in Denver. So we're in Denver again. I don't know what's going on in Denver, but...
Nothing.
They have spider people.
So he blew his cover in December 2014 when he fell through the ceiling into the restaurant.
Oh, Jesus.
Is this a comedy movie starring, like, Kevin James or something?
I just love it. Like, he fell through they'll never find me up here. So police were called, and upon arrival, they saw the man moving through an opening in the wall for the water pipes and the HVAC system.
You know, at least he's in a restaurant.
Yeah.
At least he's got like food. There's plenty of like a toilet there you can use. Like if you're gonna stow away somewhere, do it in a restaurant.
So he somehow damaged the pipes and caused a massive flood in the Yard House restaurant and the adjoining Sheridan Hotel. Then became trapped in the walls. Firefighters used a chainsaw to extract him, and he was promptly arrested. I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Like
just leave him in there. That's punishment enough.
We'll just cut the drywall out, and that's how he...
Like cartoons where they cut the cement block, but their bodies are stuck.
So there's also Eric Simon, who is a founder of tech startup Class Connect, a company devoted to revolutionizing education methods in the U.S., and he devised an ingenious solution to his food, shelter, and cash flow concerns. He squatted at the Palo Alto AOL offices for 2 months, sleeping, eating company food, and working out and showering on the on-site gym.
That's borderline luxury at that point.
Yeah. So how did he get into the AOL offices to begin with? Well, it turns out he won a competition hosted by by AOL and established an incubator for his startup there. And because of this, he had a badge granting him access to the building. After the contest was over and the prize money was gone, he discovered his badge still worked. They just don't ever reset the badges. So because the employees recognized him from the days he had spent there previously, they just assumed that he was still supposed to be there and left him alone. He was finally discovered by security guard in May 2012 and got booted. And while his badge was taken away, he continues to drop by the AOL office daily and is granted access to his incubator room despite the program having expired. So they're just like, get the fuck out of here. And then he's like, comes back and he's like, can I go see my room? Like,
well, yes, of course. Come on.
Yeah, you want it, but
we're really accommodating here at AOL.
It's not like we have a lot going on.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. And that
Jesus.
just makes me think about people that are living in my house or something. Like,
I know you said that it was more common than you'd think, but it was more common than even I thought after you said it's more common than you think.
I know. And those are just the best stories that I could find. There are like some stupid ones.
Those are the ones that are publicly known. There's probably like tons where people just got away and the cops just didn't talk about it. There's probably still happening right now. Like, holy
I found
shit.
one in China, but they can't verify. Like, there was no verification of it, but the woman had been living in this other man's house in a room he did not know he had for 26 years.
Oh, Jesus.
And all I can think to myself is, at that point, what do you do? She's been there for 26 years.
It's practically her house now.
Yeah, like
if you find her, at that point, just make it a granny suite. At this
not
point.
even just that. She's obviously been eating your food, and you've been able to afford to do this. And in China, taking care of your elders is a thing. So.
Yeah.
26 years of living here, and then be like, I guess you live here. Like, obviously I can afford to take care of you, so.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, why the fuck not? Yeah. Jesus.
26 years without noticing your food was missing or something like that.
God, 26 years without knowing there's a whole nother room to your place. It reminds me of the King of the Hill episode where they went to Japan and they think they're in this like really small hotel area, and at the end they open up like a door and it's like, you weren't staying in the opening of the apartment where you're gonna open up and it's this massive fucking hotel room.
Yeah.
or Bender in Fry's situation.
That's what I was
pretty much same joke.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put your stuff in the closet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Jesus.
That's the Denver Spider-Man.
Plus.
Yeah.
Plus.
Well, there's all these reports about how the house is still haunted. People see shadows moving through that house and stuff like that. But they're not like news reporting.
Jesus. That's spooky.
I think what's more newsworthy is a group of neighborhood residents breaking into an old man's house.
What I love is that the guy knew him, just decided to show up the one day, and then when nobody was home, he was just like, you know what? And then he hears somebody come in and be like, oh shit, where do I go? The attic.
I think my favorite part is like him following the dude around. And just like, I'm getting a thrill out of this. Ooh, like it's a stealth game. Like he's a solid fucking snake. Just like, oh, I'm gonna get caught. Hides behind a wall.
What I love too is he's 59 years old.
I imagine him in the box. Just the old man didn't even notice because he's just so old. Oh, there's a box of oranges here.
What was that noise? Oh, it's just a box. Oh, back to my nap.
Carrying his cane. What's going on around here?
He just pokes the box. Nothing happens. It's just like, all right.
That just makes me think of when I was in college. This is a great story. It was Halloween, and a couple of my friends had dressed up as ninjas. And then another friend of mine had dressed up as a box transformer.
Mm.
So he went into a classroom that was having a lecture and was like, don't worry, I'm here to protect you, and then transformed into a box. Well, then my friends bust in as ninjas, and all you see is him pop up and like transform back to his robot mode and be like, oh shit, ninjas, and run off.
You ain't protecting shit, bitch. You transform from a box into a coward.
Oh, fuck.
That's all I got.
That was an excellent episode.
Yeah.
There was just so much going on. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
6 out of 10.
There's so many moving parts to it. It was great.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for our show. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, and anything else amongst our various viewing services. As I stated before, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at BAChaosJar. You can find us on Facebook at Chaos Jar Podcast, which is also the name of our YouTube channel. You can find me on Twitter at I'm glad you asked _. I almost said the name of our thing again. And you can become a patron at patreon.com/chaosjar. Throw us a couple bucks, yo. And yeah, that's it. So, you have a good night.
Sayers, play the runs and clip again.
What kind of business is he runsing here?